Fevered Publishing presents Metal Lies, Shadowfast Action Thriller 2 by Cole Chase. Read by the author, Cole Chase.
Chapter 29. War grants no mulligans. Every trained combat warrior knows that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Under duress, focus on making every move perfectly, without shortcuts, because there won't be time to redo. An AT-4 can fire only once. Manny must get this right. His mind revs up so fast that the world goes into slow motion. An AT-4 has 3 safeties to clear before the rocket can fire, and aiming requires getting an arm through the shoulder strap and popping up 2 sights. Following a memorized and rehearsed order of operations, Manny swarms both hands all over the AT-4, yanking a pin, setting the shoulder stop, sliding sights, free. Someone watching Manny would just see him rubbing his hands and arms all over the tube at super speed. He's ready to fire in less than 10 seconds. Before he stands, he faces both his shoulders at the oncoming SUVs and points the tube toward them. He looks backward. No one is back there, but he worries that he's close enough to the wall that the backblast will burn him. When he stands, he takes a big stride forward while shouting, "Backblast area clear!" At 6 feet 4 inches, he now presents a massive target for the oncoming SUV, but it's still 90 yards away. He unfolds the cocking lever, which is the second safety. Bullets chip the concrete benches 20 feet ahead of him and spray to one side while he adjusts the range on the sight, roughly guessing where the SUV will be a few seconds from now. His heart hammers in his chest, and his breath comes hard and ragged. Focus, he tells himself. He shuts out the music, the lights, the flames, ignores Rory yelling, "Shoot, shoot, shoot." He looks at the SUV through the pinhole of the rear sight and rests that pinhole on the curve of the front sight. The final safety is a red switch on top of the tube, which he must pull to the right while simultaneously using the same hand to trigger the rocket with his thumb. He aims at the lead SUV. Nothing fancy. He's going for center mass. At the last second, he realizes the cartridge conceivably could sail right through the front and back windows of the SUV and strike God knows what, so he drops his aim, targeting somewhere between the hood and the grill. "Rocket!" he bellows. He pushes the trigger button. The primer clicks rapidly 3 times, then booms a boom that rattles Manny to his gut. If the AK fire seemed loud, the AT-4 says, "Hold my beer, I'll show you loud." The recoil shoves the shoulder mount into him and pops the front end of the launcher up, but it's hardly worse than a shotgun. Given the term rocket, the shell poofs away slower than he expected. He's pretty sure he's seen Major League fastballs travel faster. The SUV drove faster than Manny calculated, but not by much. He aimed for the grill, but the shell hits the dashboard just in front of the steering wheel. Then he can't see anything because the high-explosive anti-tank round detonates, with a flash brighter than the sun, into a massive cloud of smoke. Though Manny can't see through the smoke, he can picture what happens next because of the shell's design. Engineered for beyond armor effect, it penetrates like a bullet as big as a baseball, then explodes with the intent of killing everyone inside a tank. The explosion generates monstrous overpressure inside the vehicle, a concussion that liquefies organs. The warhead itself fragments, shredding the passengers. Extensive heat and smoke make it impossible for the inhabitants to breathe. The Escalade was accelerating at them faster than 60 miles per hour, but it suddenly veers to one side. The speed tapers. There's no one at the wheel. The driver of the second SUV finds himself tailing a wall of dense smoke and fire, and suddenly deprived of visibility, he rams the lead SUV. They both skid and careen. When they settle, they are tail to nose alongside each other, halted broadside to Manny. Firing the AT-4 leaves it useless. It's just a plastic tube now. He lays it back in the anvil case. The pre-programmed music sequence finishes. The lights stop spinning and flashing. The night goes still. Night Boy isn't there to push them to the next song. Cisco isn't there to count off the next tune. Bodies litter the area. The one Rory put down with a single shot, the smoldering guy who ran into Manny's pyro, and 30 feet away, the sapper. Then the fire inside the wrecked SUV finds the fuel tank. The blast triggers explosions in both Escalades, wham, whoom, engulfing both vehicles in a huge ball of fire. Even 70 yards away, the concussion wave reaches Manny and Rory enough to lift their hair and make them flinch. The heat wave follows, warming their faces and hands. When it passes, he can hear the roar of the flames licking the underside of oil-black smoke rising into the night. The air reeks of petrochemicals. It takes Manny a second to tear his gaze from the spectacle. He abruptly remembers Night Boy and the fleeing kidnapper. When he whips his head to the side, though, they are gone. Cooper and Danny, gone. Escape vehicle, gone. He turns to Rory, who rises from a crouch with her Ruger dangling, forgotten. They're each untouched after a terrorist attack, yet it doesn't feel like victory. Chapter 30. Hostiles taking Night Boy. They're running for the roundabout. Can you block? The words from his speakerphone startle Quinn out of lethargic regrets. He lurches out of his slump, showering shreds of lettuce and crumbs off his lap. The roundabout empties onto 5th Avenue at Harrison Street. It's diagonally across 5th from him if he's willing to drive against traffic. Quinn touches the phone and responds, "Copy, moving." He fires up the Trackhawk's throaty engine, glad that he backed in so the car faces the driveway. The pay-the-slot lot has no barrier blocking the way. At late evening, a vigorous amount of traffic still plies the 4-lane street. But the light that would make traffic block Quinn from crossing the street turned green 30 seconds ago, so the stopped cars have cleared. He has a gap. He guns the performance Jeep through it at a reckless diagonal, crossing 4 lanes with 2 of them against traffic. Harrison Street joins 5th Avenue with a mouth too wide for Quinn to block with 1 vehicle. But some beater sedan defies the no-stop sign, idling in the Harrison Street lane closest to MoPOP's entrance. A woman wearing an expensive overcoat and expensive hair clambers from the car, relying heavily on a walker. The Trackhawk roars up next to the beater. Quinn stops at an angle. With the left rear brake light of the Jeep nearly touching the driver's door of the beater, they really have plugged the street. Now that he gets his first look at what's going on, that might not be good. A large black SUV faces him from the roundabout, about 200 feet away. The side doors hang wide open. The driver leans across the shotgun seat, shooting a large handgun at somebody who is not visible because MoPOP blocks Quinn's view. The driver's gun booms a high-caliber, big boy boom. Then someone comes into view, scuttling for the SUV. That far from MoPOP's entrance, the lights barely illuminate the person in the night. It takes Quinn a moment of puzzling at the tangled image to realize a guy wearing shorts and combat boots has his arm around Night Boy in an awkward carry. Night Boy's feet drag. He looks unconscious. Adrenaline dumps so hard into Quinn's body that he feels his head swell with rage. He scrambles for his everyday carry, pinned inconveniently at the small of his back. The steering wheel keeps him from leaning far enough forward to draw the weapon from its holster. Instead of freeing his Sig Sauer in an elegant fast draw, he thrashes around grunting before he has it in hand. Automatic weapon chatter rattles the night. The waiting SUV rocks as the front right tire blows and the passenger side mirror shatters. The driver ducks back to his side of the car. 2 men sprint around the corner of the building. It's Cooper with his AR-15 and Danny with his HKM P7. The man hustling Night Boy along manhandles his unconscious charge through the open back door onto the SUV's seat. Night Boy is dead weight. His limbs dangle everywhere. The guy in shorts gets hung up, trying to shove 160 pounds of noodle into the vehicle. Quinn slips out of the Jeep. He aims his SIG between his open door and the doorpost. Though it takes him 3 shots at this range, he blows out the SUV's other front tire. In his peripheral vision, he notices the flicker of Cooper's laser sight, fingering the guy struggling with Night Boy. In primary view, though, he sees the driver popping his shoulders out of the driver's window to shoot back at Quinn. Adrenalized, Quinn notices everything: the high cheekbones on his skinny face, the giant gold ear gauges in both ears, the boring brown blow-dry bangs. He drops behind the Trackhawk's open door, trying and failing to stay cool under fire. The problem is the driver's high-caliber weapon. It sounds like a .45, and if so, the one time in the Army that Quinn fired a Desert Eagle inside an Afghani bus, the round went through 5 seats. In a deep squat, he duck waddles as hard as he can to get around the back of the Jeep, which, according to the feeling in his exposed back, is a mile away. To his right, mere feet away, the beater sedan gets the hell out of there, throwing grit in Quinn's face. The rear fender moves out like a curtain parting to reveal the woman with the walker, paralyzed by fear on the sidewalk. She stares, mouth agape, nothing moving except her eyes following Quinn in his desperate duck walk. He hears voices bark behind him. In his scuffling and panting, he can't make out what they say. Then he hears the SUV's engine roar and tires chirp. Suddenly, the guy he thought was about to shoot him is forcing his flat-tire van up onto the opposite sidewalk, nosing around the Trackhawk's hood. He revs onto 5th, turning hard and accelerating away. The back passenger door sticks open. As Quinn rises to his feet, he glimpses Night Boy's gangly body sprawled in back. He hears the digital bing, bing, bing warning the driver his door is ajar. The van hangs a left onto Thomas and disappears. In a storm of hollow aluminum clanking, the woman with the walker gallops as best she can for the safety of MoPOP. Quinn whirls, looking for Cooper and Danny. They have subdued the kidnapper with his fingers laced on top of his head. They hurry toward Quinn, rudely poking the man along with their rifle barrels. They stop a few feet shy of the Trackhawk's slate blue door. Quinn starts to ask them something, but before he can get it out, a blast interrupts him. The whoomp of a rocket launcher firing. Reflexively, the men all duck. The woman with the walker redoubles her efforts and gets a hand on MoPOP's glass door. Quinn hears an impact, breaking glass, tires squealing. It's all coming from the west side of MoPOP where the band was playing. Unfazed, Cooper asks, "What do we do with this asswipe?" Before Quinn can answer, twin explosions break the night. "What the actual fuck?" he exclaims. With typical verbal economy, Danny blurts, "Night Boy." No time. With the stubby butt of his MP7, he bashes their captive in the skull. Shorts and boots guy collapses bonelessly to the sidewalk. Cooper moves around the Trackhawk's driver door. "It's my car," he says. "I'm driving." Danny kneels and strips the laces from Shorts guy's boot. Quinn joins in, stripping the other boot. While Danny ties the unconscious man's wrists behind his back, Quinn binds his ankles together. Cisco pulls up, breaking Mr. Lick's parallel to the Trackhawk. Leaving the ice cream truck idling, he hops out to meet the others. "Sup?" he inquires urgently. From the corner of MoPOP by the roundabout, Rory runs toward them, as best she can in her spiked heels. "Where's Manny?" Quinn calls, standing above the bound captive. "Is he okay?" "We're both fine," she calls back. In a few seconds she arrives, panting. "He's guarding the gear. We can't leave a rocket launcher on the sidewalk." Quinn realizes he's been hearing sirens since he began tying bootlaces. "Right," he decides. "Cooper, Danny, on me. We'll pursue Night Boy and the Trackhawk. Cisco and Rory, Help Manny load the van, ASAP. If cops arrive, leave the instruments, but not the weapons. Then converge on me. I'll keep comms open and talk you in. Go." The band scatters. Quinn piles into shotgun while Danny jumps into the Trackhawk's second row of seats. Rory hustles back toward the band setup. Cooper and Cisco perform a clumsy vehicle ballet to get around each other. Then the ice cream truck drives for the roundabout, and Cooper whips the Jeep onto 5th. As Cooper guns the vehicle, Quinn checks their 6. He glimpses the Walker woman, staring out of MoPOP's glass door at shorts and boots guy, comatose on the sidewalk. She speaks into a smartphone, but Quinn doesn't have time to wonder who she is or who she called. Chapter 31. Realizing they might have made themselves conspicuous by their absence, Manjunath follows Randeep to join the stragglers entering Sky Church. In MoPOP's exposed architecture style, lights and projectors hang from chrome towers and grids, coloring the walls purple, swirling patterns across everything and everyone. Fancy lighting aside, it's mostly a giant, high-ceilinged room with an Atmos sound system and no chairs. Its big feature is literally big, an LED screen that measures 33 feet tall and 60 feet across. Manjunath doesn't realize how titanic that is until a Sky House executive stands in front of it to introduce a corporate video. Next to the immense screen, he seems as tall as a doll. At first, Manjunath extends the courtesy of listening, but the executive thanks an endless list of sponsors, organizers, and employees, and eventually Manjunath's mind races too intensely for him to listen. For Randeep just told him that Brody Bach's plan commences tonight. Not skilled at reading social cues, Manjunath isn't certain how to James Bond. To maintain his cover, shouldn't he endure at least some of the Sky House big announcement? But since he achieved one of his spy goals, is it okay to drop his cover? He must communicate with Quinn. He stands in agitation, debating what to do, feeling the weight of the stakes. The executive makes a final comment Manjunath doesn't hear, but it draws a laugh and better-than-courtesy applause from the gala audience, who stand in ragged rows trying to see around one another. The lights dim as the executive leaves the stage. The Sky House logo on the screen dissolves through to a ground-level view of a rocket ship on a launch pad. A normal video would show the entire rocket. This video fills the humongous screen with just the engines, because that's the part Sky House made. A caption reads, "Kennedy Space Center, Cape Canaveral, Florida, 2008. The audience hears the thin, crackling voice of Control counting down. Then the engines ignite. The surround sound in Sky Church erupts, imitating reality so well that audience members blanch or share looks of amused shock. The polished cement floor trembles from the engine's thunder. On screen, a roiling cloud of dust and smoke conceals the rocket engines until slowly, the rocket rises. Manjunath marvels at the speaker system and the depth of its rumble. The very convincing surround sound makes him think he can also hear explosions outside the museum. He looks around, but no one in the audience seems alarmed. A narrator extols the accomplishments of Sky House, starting with this, their first successful private launch of a reusable rocket. Manjunath thinks about launch windows and vectors and orbits every day, so he finds the commentary superficial and boring, and he just can't take it anymore. Burning with the knowledge of when Brody plans to attack, he spins to leave for a quieter room where he can communicate with Quinn. Manjunath about faces to hurry out of Sky Church, then collides with a man behind him wearing a top knot. That shoves the cup in Manjunath's hand horizontal, dumping the remains of his gin and tonic into his sweater. He tries to apologize but can't hear his own voice over the video. Instead, he mimes profuse apologies, then awkwardly excuses himself and rushes to the men's room. The video about Sky House SBG seems to have held the audience because Manjunath has the restroom to himself. Using brown paper towels, he improvises a squeegee, swiping at the moisture standing on his sweater. "Quinn," he says as he wipes. His voice reverberates off the concrete walls, steel mirrors, and porcelain fixtures. No one answers him. The channel was supposed to remain open, but he figures others might have disconnected when he accidentally broadcast all that rocket noise. Manjunath gets out his phone. He scrolls and wipes and stabs at the comms app Quinn had him download, but as far as he can see, it's already operating. "Quinn, I must speak with you, urgently." No response. He checks the signal indicator in the corner of his phone's screen. Full bars. "Anyone on this channel?" He pleads, "Please answer! I implore you!" Nothing. He examines the app more deeply. He can see it offers 32 different channels, but Quinn told him to stick with the one he's already on, so he doesn't know which channels to change to. He wonders if he should try them, one by one, until he gets a response. Then he remembers seeing Shadowfast entertaining on the west side of MoPOP when he first entered. His phone shows approximately 35 minutes have passed. Perhaps they are still there. He thinks he can find them much faster than he can puzzle out the communications app. He rushes from the bathroom and descends the stairs 2 at a time. On the ground floor, he ignores the quizzical smiles from the Sky House ushers and crashes his hip against the bar on the exit door. He must move urgently because Shadowfast does not know what he knows, what Randeep told him minutes ago. Shadowfast has mere hours to stop Brody Bach from destroying GPS in the United States. Chapter 32. "They went left on Thomas," Quinn urges Cooper. Danny leans forward between the maroon leather bucket seats. "They have 2 flats. Maybe we catch up." The Trackhawk roars as Cooper punches it toward 5th and Thomas, trying to make up time. Quinn anxiously eyes the signal ahead to see if they'll make the light. "Heads up," he shouts. "4-way greens." Traffic flowing toward them on 5th, and from their left on Thomas enters the intersection at the same time, each direction flowing at 45 miles per hour. Car horns blare. Headlights whirl in improbable directions. A small Kia swerves to avoid a pickup truck, too late. With a metallic crunch, they collide. A motorcyclist behind the truck tries to swerve, but when the Kia and the truck spin in a united skid, they clip the bike and the driver flies off it. Cooper wrestles the steering wheel, elbows flying. He slaloms the Jeep through the hazards and miraculously, they come out on Thomas, still at speed. As they fly past a McDonald's, he exclaims, "What the hell was that?" Quinn had forgotten that the night he, Cisco, and Rory saw the jammer in action, Cooper was elsewhere with Mr. Licks. "Long story," he says. "Jammer," Danny says from the back. Quinn peers ahead, but he can't see the black SUV containing Night Boy. "Where to?" Cooper demands. "I figure he's running for Highway 99 or I-5, Quinn answers. "He's a moron if he tries freeway speeds on 2 flats. 99 then," Quinn guesses. Cooper navigates toward Highway 99, in this part of Seattle, dubbed Aurora, glancing at the nav built into the Jeep's dashboard. The avatar car on the screen is not moving. They encounter another intersection with all-way green lights. The accidents have already happened, so Cooper barely slows to pick his way around them. "I guess we're on the right track," Quinn says. Cooper nods. Trail of fucking breadcrumbs. He revs the Jeep onto Highway 99. U.S. Route 99, one of the first paved roads in the Pacific Northwest, extended the length of Washington state and, under various names and highway numbers, all the way south through Oregon and California down to Los Angeles. Although it was a futuristic marvel in the late 1920s and 30s, by 1969, U.S. Route 99 was drastically outclassed by the newer, wider interstate freeway system. Ambitious businesses and national chains moved to capitalize on the greater traffic along I-5, leaving 99 to downscale mom-and-pop commerce. When Quinn rides onto Aurora, as far as he can see ahead, used car lots, legal marijuana outlets, and run-down strip malls built in the 50s line both sides of the four-lane highway. Due to its past as the main thoroughfare north of Seattle, Aurora boasts a straight stretch of miles with only 2 traffic lights. Cooper pushes the Trackhawk above 70 miles per hour, the Hellcat V8 under the hood shouting defiance at all other vehicles. Quinn tries to look everywhere at once for a black SUV in the night. He can feel Danny behind him, doing the same. After nearly a minute of tense racing up the highway, Quinn notices a flicker inside the Jeep. The nav display on the dashboard pops up a box saying it cannot find a satellite connection. A loading indicator whirls in a circle. Before he can process what that means, Cooper slams on the brakes. Quinn's body hurtles forward so fast the seatbelt sensor catches. The belt cuts into his shoulder. He feels a thump behind him as Danny's body flies into the back of his seat. "No brake lights?" "No, nothing," Cooper grumps. "Lucky I saw it at all." He gears down and pulls the Jeep into the other lane, skirting a dusty sedan that sits motionless, idling in the middle of the highway. It dawns on Quinn. No GPS. We've all lost GPS. "Like Manny's drone, computer car does not know where it is," Danny agrees. "His GPS jammer only has a certain range. We must be close." "Contact right," Danny shouts. "Stop, stop, stop." Cooper executes an emergency stop, and again Quinn feels the shoulder belt stop him from flying through the windshield. A car following the Jeep blares its horn as it swerves around them. Before the car fully halts, Cooper cranks it into a driveway. The Jeep has been hurtling north on the stretch of Highway 99 that has no traffic signals. There are no signals because there are no cross streets. There are no cross streets because the land has dropped away. Though the road has felt flat and straight to passengers and drivers, the portion of highway they've arrived at is the beginning of a steel bridge that crosses Lake Union, 167 feet below. At the mouth of the bridge in the 1950s, an architect built a mid-century modern house cantilevered off the last high piece of ground before the bridge. Defying gravity, it hangs out over the Queen Anne district of Seattle, far below. No one lives in the building now. It is a restaurant, so fancy that Quinn has never eaten there despite hearing about it all his life. The black SUV idles in the restaurant parking lot. Someone runs around the back of the vehicle from the passenger side, then hops into the driver's seat. He had to close that back passenger door, Quinn realizes. "Well, kiss my go to hell, we found him." Cooper grins. Then he looks at Quinn. "Now what, boss?" "Get closer," Quinn says, drawing his cig. "Only 2 tires to go." Cooper haws. "Just don't hit the gas tank," he suggests as Quinn powers his window down. "Baby on board." Chapter 33. Manjunath gallops out of the MoPOP door, then 3 steps later stops, disoriented. He must have gone out the wrong exit. He tosses his head wildly, looking for clues about where he is. Slightly ahead to one side, he sees the back of a bronze statue. It immortalizes a long-haired rock star who wears an electric guitar and thrusts an arm into the air. To his right, he sees a busy intersection. Some accident has occurred because vehicles sit at odd angles, none of them moving. The street sign hanging above them reads, 5th Avenue. He exited exactly opposite where he meant to go. He's on the east side of MoPOP while Shadowfast set up on the west side. Run back inside or run around the building? If he goes inside, he might make a different version of the same mistake, choosing the wrong exit. He decides to run around the exterior. He turns right and lopes along the sheet metal building, a burnished gold in this section. He passes under the monorail. At the corner of the building, he turns right again and finds himself running straight for the Space Needle. White uplights make the tower stand stark against the black sky. His eyes follow the slim tower upward to the numerous joists supporting the circular observation deck. It's like looking up the underside of a skyscraping mushroom. The width of MoPOP stretches alongside him, silver blue on this side. Each step on the cement sidewalk jolts his shins. He can hardly breathe. Manjunath realizes it has been years since he ran anywhere. He slows to a panting speed walk while he extracts his phone from his pocket. "Quinn," he gasps into it. Still no response. He touches the earbud, except that he doesn't. Where it was is an empty ear. His heart sinks. It must have dislodged when he bumped into the man in Sky Church, or maybe while he ran just now. He stares frantically around his feet and along the sidewalk, on the off chance that he can find it. But darkness makes it impossible to tell an earbud from a pebble from a cigarette butt, and he quickly gives up. He resorts to more familiar tech. He jams his hand into his left hip pocket and pulls out his personal AirPods. He plugs them into his ears. Exiting the comms app, he places a basic phone call to Quinn. A digital burble sounds twice, 3 times. Quinn's voice, "You know what to do." Then the beep. Manjunath has burst with his news for long enough. He spills it into the phone, in public, as tourists wander the area around him. "I know Brody's attack," he pants. "I learned it from a Skyhouse employee. He will... Manjunath shuts his eyes and focuses. How can he say this so Quinn understands? "My hypothesis was correct, what I told you in Columbia Tower." He catches his breath, convinced he's failing at his task. "He will crash old HEO satellites into current GPS LEO satellites. High orbit blocking, low orbit." He pauses to swallow, his throat ragged from mouth breathing. Has he said enough? Oh wait, the most important bit. "Quinn, it's tonight. The launch window is tonight. I cannot emphasize this strongly enough. To coordinate the thrust with Chinese and Russian satellites, they fire at 3 a.m. local time. He will launch from his control center at..." It occurs to Manjunath how loudly he has spoken in his urgency. His gaze focused on nothing while he spoke, but now it lands on a white man dashing toward him. The man carries a deadly-looking rifle. He has murder in his eyes. Chapter 34. The back tires of Mr. Licks jerk up and over the curb as Cisco reverses from the roundabout, right onto the wide concrete that surrounds MoPOP. He swings his head left and right, from one side mirror to the other and back, watching and adjusting the wheel until the back doors of the van nearly touch the toppled pyro cannon. By the time he brakes, shifts the van into park, hops down from the seat, and hurries around to the back, Manny and Rory have thrown the doors open and loaded a pyro cannon inside. They have mere minutes until the police show up. Distant sirens sound less distant now. The trio moves with urgency and minimum discussion. Rory recovers the lid that Manny flipped off the anvil cases when he went for the rocket launcher. As soon as she sets it in place, Cisco and Manny secure the clasps. All 3 of them lift the heavy case, which still contains a loaded rocket launcher. As soon as the first pair of casters touches the floor of the van, Manny shoves the case mightily, and it rolls deep into the van, skidding to a halt at an angle. He finds where he laid his M4 on the asphalt and slides it into the van. In the next moments, they grab an impressive amount of gear, including more anvil cases, the other pyro cannon, and the instruments, tossed in naked. Manny manhandles the soundboard all the way from across the street into the van, while Rory captures smaller items such as microphones, cables, and the guitar cases, all to the accompaniment of sirens drawing closer. Cisco dedicates himself to disassembling and packing his drums at warp speed. He has only gotten the symbols put away when a vehicle with flashing emergency lights rolls into the playground west of him. His heart skips a beat until he realizes it's a fire truck. It's there to deal with the blazing SUVs. Time to make some tough choices. He gets his snare into its case so he can carry it by a handle. That leaves his other hand free to grab his custom drum throne. "Rory!" he calls. She looks up from trying to coil a long XLR cable. "Grab my pedals, then let's go." She drops her cable and rushes over. The sirens sound like they're just on the other side of MoPOP now. A fire chief's vehicle has joined the fire truck in the playground. "Gotta go," Manny urges. Cisco spares one mournful glance at the Vistalite toms and their beautiful hardware. "Coming," he says, and dashes his load to the van. As he inserts his snare and throne among all the gear, he's sorry to see that rather than their usual carefully packed, lashed-down load, they've got a very expensive heap, their whole musical lives tossed like junk into a garbage truck. No time. He slams the doors, then sprints for the driver's seat. Manny waits in the shotgun seat. "Come on," he urges Rory, who fiddles with something on the sidewalk. "Parting gift," Rory says, opening her hand to reveal 3 EG-18X smoke bombs. Cisco doesn't know how these wound up in the mix when they had no plan to use them in tonight's show, but he's glad to see them. She pulls the wires and tosses them behind the ice cream truck. Then she reaches up and Manny pulls her into the vehicle. Cisco punches it as soon as her feet leave the ground. As the Sprinter van lurches off the curb into the turnaround, he watches his mirrors. 3 lush, intense blooms of smoke spring forth in purple, red, and blue. They gush in random directions, and within seconds the smoke has risen as high as MoPOP, thick as an inferno, hiding the monorail, screening the Space Needle. As he corners around the museum, behind him, he can just make out the front bumpers of 2 Seattle Police Department cars, brought to a sudden halt by the colorful smoke screen. He turns right onto 5th, running parallel to the museum on its east side, while ahead on Thomas he sees 2 more police cars turning into MoPOP's west side. They've slipped out just in time. "Left on Thomas," Manny says. When Cisco makes the turn, he winces at the sound of the instruments sliding and crunching in the back. Also, Rory's elbow hits him. "Sorry," she says, "nowhere to sit." She kneels between Cisco and Manny and throws an arm around each seat back to steady herself. "Now what?" Cisco asks. He notices a pungent odor in the van. "Wow, Manny, you gotta stop using nitro as a cologne." "Or maybe stop bathing in backblast," Rory adds. "Saved our asses, didn't I?" Manny mumbles. He's too distracted to play along, busily wiping and typing and pinching and spreading on his phone screen. "Looks like Cooper is driving north on Highway 99. "Facile," Cisco says. There's no nav built into the ice cream truck, and he doesn't need it. He's feeling relieved after escaping the attack, then eluding the cops. He hangs a left on the street that becomes Aurora a few blocks north. "Let's save Muchacho Noche." He catches Rory and Manny trading glances at his Spanglish. "Muchacho Noche," he repeats. "Night Boy." "We get it," Rory says, "but they had machine guns. How are we going to stop them by rolling up in an ice cream truck?" Cisco ponders, then smiles as the answer comes to him. "Brain freeze." Chapter 35. In the restaurant parking lot, the SUV's backup lights come on, bright white in the night as the Trackhawk rolls up behind it. Cooper stops at an angle, blocking the van from going anywhere except deeper into the lot. The back of the lot leads over a cliff. They've trapped the SUV. "I have driver's side," Quinn says as he and Danny burst from the Jeep with their weapons. They scramble to opposite sides of the SUV, weapons trained on the driver. He has his windows down. Give it up, chuckle fuck, Quinn growls, shoving the barrel of his gun into the side of the man's head. The driver's gold ear gauge picks up a hot gleam from the Nighthawk's headlights, and Quinn feels oh so tempted to stick a finger in it and rip it out. He and Danny each stand near the pillars just behind the front seats, so if they fire at the driver, they won't hit each other. Quinn yells, "Hands!" Then he holds his breath. If the idiot wants to make a play, now is the moment. But Gold Ear Gauge slowly raises his hands. "Do not shoot," he says carefully. "I comply." "No sudden moves," Quinn orders. "Get out of the car." Ear Gauge's eyes slide around, seeking an option. "Do it!" Danny brandishes his MP7, which makes his muscles ripple. "I will exit," the driver says slowly, "but when I lift foot from brake, my truck will reverse." "Look at me," Quinn orders. "Keep your hands up." When the driver obeys, Danny opens the passenger door, grabs the shifter, and shoves it into park. Carefully keeping the SIG trained on the driver with one hand, Quinn reaches out with his left and pops the door, then throws it wide. He backs up a few steps. "Out, nice and easy." Ear Gauge keeps his hands up. His feet, wearing cheap trainers, paddle against the carpet and pivot his body in the car seat until his knees face out the door. Carefully, he sets his feet on the asphalt, then stands. The headlights lend him drama, his face bright on one side and shadowed on the other. Quinn realizes he's just a kid. "Lace your fingers behind your head," Quinn orders, "then get on your knees." Ear Gauge laces his fingers, then balks. "Do not execute me," he pleads. "I just follow orders." Quinn maintains a cold stare on the driver. "Danny," he says, "check Night Boy." Danny slides the back passenger door open. He pokes Night Boy's soles with his rifle. Then he clambers inside the SUV because Night Boy's head is on Quinn's side of the car. "I said on your knees," Quinn barks. "Hear me out," the driver begs. His skinny face looks drawn and sad. "I do not want to die." "I'm not executing you unless you don't get on your knees." I have knees injury," Ear Gauge lies. "They cannot take my weight on ground." His gaze flicks past Quinn's shoulder. Then, even though he's literally under the gun, he pivots and tosses himself back into the SUV. Just as a dusty sedan rams the Trackhawk in the rear. The autonomous car had gotten all the speed it could after turning into the driveway. Cooper has the Jeep in park, but the Dusty hits it on the right rear corner, striking the steel reinforcement beam inside the Jeep body. As its airbags deploy into Cooper's face, the Jeep skids forward into the SUV. The impact throws Danny against the back seats, and Night Boy's limp body rolls onto the SUV's floor. None of this catches Quinn, except to distract him. He stares at the Dusty in disbelief, noticing afresh how creepy it looks to see a car backing itself away. Its collision crumpled the front hood so severely that if it had a human driver, that driver would strain to see over the bent metal. Only one headlight still shines. Then it revs forward and rams the Trackhawk again. The Dusty sedan has less momentum this time, but it manages to dent the back of the Trackhawk. When the autonomous car backs up again, the Jeep's hatch floats open with a damaged latch. "God damn it," Cooper fumes, beating at the airbag, which deflates too slowly for his impatience. He emerges from the Jeep, then throws open the side door to grab his AR-15 from the back floor. The Dusty sedan sits poised to strike again. It pauses, and as it idles, Quinn realizes it's thinking. When it revs forward, it drives straight for Quinn. Nearby, a round planter filled with juniper and scrub pines adds a grace note to the parking lot. He dives headlong into it and lands with 2 pine trunks between him and the car. The car plows into the trunks, the bumper 2 feet from his face. The car's single headlight fills his vision with blinding white. The trunks look young by tree standards, but they stop the car. Its engine revs as it keeps trying to push through them, its bumper chewing the bark until the tires spin in place. The smell of burnt rubber grows so strong he can taste it, bitter on the back of his tongue. Quinn scrambles to gather his feet under him, disentangling himself from juniper barbs. As he struggles, Danny hurls a football-sized stone at the Desti car's passenger window. The tempered glass shatters into 1,000 rounded shards, leaving the window open. As the car shifts gears and begins to back up again, with 2 quick steps, Danny leaps feet first into the opening he made. It's not a crazy Jackie Chan leap that takes him through the entire car. His grace makes it look like no big deal. One moment he's running at the car, the next he has perched his butt on the windowsill with his feet inside the car. For a hot second, he resembles a parade queen riding out where he can wave at the crowd. He squirms into the vehicle, into the driver's seat. As a pilot project, Desti's Seattle fleet has functioning controls in case a human must take corrective action. As Quinn watches in awe, Danny takes the wheel while the car backs up. When it shifts into drive, he steers the car away from everyone, around the planter, heading for the back of the parking lot. A second later, the driver door springs open and Danny bails out, rolling into the dark on the asphalt. The car accelerates as if someone drives it with a heavy foot. Through the open door, the dome light provides enough illumination for Quinn to glimpse the football stone on the accelerator. The car crushes a thin line of azaleas and rhododendrons, then sails itself over the cliff. Quinn stands frozen. The world catches its breath. Chapter 36. 2 long seconds later, he hears a weighty crunch of mass on mass, then branches snapping. A pause and a second whoom make him think the car flipped end over end. He can hear stones tumbling against metal and dirt sliding as some of the cliff chases the car. Then, nothing. The sound of traffic takes over, rushing on Highway 99 behind him. He comes to himself. The SIG sits on one of his feet, barely visible in the junipers. He snatches it, and the grip shoves a barb into the heel of his palm. His shirt smells like gin. "No!" Danny shouts. Quinn turns. At the mouth of the driveway, the black SUV containing Night Boy merges into traffic streaming north. As it leaves, another driverless Desti car whips into the parking lot. A matching car follows close behind it. The sloped headlights look like glowing demon eyes. For a split second, Quinn thinks to hide behind the tree trunks, but that will ultimately leave him pinned, and 2 cars can attack from 2 sides. He breaks for the Trackhawk's shotgun door. Cooper wasn't far from the Jeep. In 3 hasty strides, he's back at the wheel, slamming his door shut. The Grand Cherokee automatically cut the engine when the airbags deployed. Cooper fires the ignition. As Quinn scrambles to get around the door into the shotgun seat, Cooper flails the flat airbag out of his way. Danny, still on the ground where he rolled from the first Desti car, scrambles to rise. Quinn makes it into the Jeep and shuts his door just as the first Desti sedan plows into the rear. With the damaged hatch already stuck in the air, the bumper-to-bumper crunch leaves his ears ringing. The second Desti car guns for Danny. He's caught in the open, near where he fell from the first Desti car at the back of the lot. 25 yards separate him from the Trackhawk. Danny lowers his chin and squares his footing, assessing the Desti car as its headlights shine brighter and brighter on him. Then he runs directly at it. At the last possible second, he leaps over its hood, legs churning. One foot touches lightly on the windshield. The other foot touches the middle of its roof. Then the car passes under Danny and he's landing on the asphalt. He rolls, redirecting his downward energy into forward energy, then pops to his feet and scrambles to a halt. The Desti car rushes forward for a few seconds after it misses Danny. No one would have programmed a car to respond to a human flying over it. Then the car brakes, its red sequential taillights resembling angry squinting eyes in the dark. Cooper throws the Trackhawk into reverse. With a bit of slaloming, he backs around so the second Desti car has nowhere to go. "Come on," Quinn urges Danny. The first car had probably meant to ram the Trackhawk again, but when the Jeep moves out of its path, the first car billy goats a couple of times, indecisively. Then it idles. To Quinn, it almost looks confused. He wonders if the actions of the car are not merely code and programming. Maybe someone runs them manually like a giant RC car. Or maybe it's like a drone swarm, where most of the members follow a program, but the operator can override an individual machine. Wherever that person is, looking at the world through vehicle cameras, they're thrown off balance. Danny has jogged across the parking lot to where he dropped his MP7 before throwing a rock at the first Desti car. He snatches up the weapon. The pinned Desti car backs into Cooper's door, but it was only a foot away, so nothing much happens. The sedan keeps trying to back up, apparently unaware that it weighs less than the Trackhawk. Danny approaches the other Desti car from the side. When he's 5 feet away, he squats and fires a 10-round burst into the front and rear tires, which blow instantly. He stays down low and sprays another 10 rounds at the underside of the car, waving his barrel front to back. Then he does it a second time, back to front. His 4.6mm bullets can't really harm the engine block, so he's hoping to sever the brake lines, crack the transaxle, or randomly decommission the car. As Danny runs for the Trackhawk, the shot car backs up again. It looks drunk, listing low on the side with the punctured tires. Something drags on the asphalt, throwing sparks when the car moves. Quinn squirms in his seat, reaches back, and pops the passenger door, so when Danny gets to it, it's half open. Cooper jerks his head at the sedan, stupidly pressing back against his door. "When we leave, this fucker will try to yuck our yum again." Quinn belts up as Danny, now in the car, smacks a fresh magazine into his weapon. "Can't save Night Boy from here." "Hey, Superman," Cooper says to Danny, looking at him in the rearview mirror. "Can't you just throw these two cars at each other?" "I already threw one off the cliff," Danny harumphs. "Some people never satisfied." "Don't take it that way," Quinn reassures him. "If I gotta be chased by a swarm of crazy murder cars, you're the one I want to be chased with." The shot-up car rams the front right quarter panel of the Jeep, but it feels like its heart isn't in it. Cooper grimaces. "These guys don't get that I'm John Wick, and this Jeep is my puppy." He throws the Trackhawk into gear and pulls it around the limping Desti sedan to the mouth of the driveway. The bustling highway traffic forces them to wait for a break. Even so, when they join the flow, the two murder-bot cars at the fancy restaurant are still turning around. Chapter 37. "Shit, now what?" Cooper says. As they zoom north on the narrow Aurora Bridge, it has 3 lanes heading in each direction. The southbound lanes, normally brisk with traffic, are empty. Quinn, fumbling to get his phone out of his hip pocket, scans ahead to see why there are no oncoming vehicles. Ahead, 5 Desti cars have blocked the southbound lanes at the mouth of the bridge. 2 of them have turned perpendicular to the lanes, imitating a police roadblock. The other 3 race south, 1 in each lane with their headlights in robotically perfect alignment. With a sinking feeling, Quinn guesses their target. Driving the Aurora Bridge has always made him nervous. Because it was built in 1932, the lanes run narrower than modern streets. Nothing separates northbound traffic from southbound traffic except a double yellow line painted on the asphalt. About every 2 car lengths or so, a meager plastic stanchion stands with yellow reflectors, but nothing like a railing separates the 2 opposing flows. Quinn finds it difficult to trust his fellow humans and always expects some loon to fall asleep at the wheel or exercise his grudge against people by merging into oncoming traffic, 16 stories above Lake Union. Now it's happening. "Brace, brace, brace," Quinn shouts, grabbing the overhead handle. Cooper roars in wordless frustration as the 3 Desti cars rush toward them, corner hard across the center median, and ram the Grand Cherokee in a coordinated triple broadside. The jolt immediately jumps the Jeep sideways by a foot and almost rolls it over. Quinn feels his seat lean, and he sees the horizon angling steeper, steeper as the 2 left tires rise, almost past the tipping point. But the Jeep's forward momentum drives it ahead of the ramming cars. The world explodes into a chaos of cars spinning and skidding, headlights and taillights swirling in blurred circles. Loose objects in the car fly everywhere. When the tires slam back down, the ride feels weird, as if they're on a flat road, yet somehow also driving downhill. Traffic behind them in the northbound lane swerves crazily into the empty southbound lanes to get around the collision, horns blaring and drivers shouting. Quinn has that awful traffic accident feeling of helplessness as too much happens too fast to process. When the tangle of cars comes to rest, too much road fills the windshield. He looks back out the open rear hatch and sees a Desti car's windshield at the level of the Jeep's bumper. The Trackhawk's left rear tire sits on its hood, tipping their car at a preposterous angle. "Go!" he yells at Cooper. "Drive off it!" But the side airbags deployed in the crash, and Cooper looks dazed. His hands aren't on the wheel. Through the open rear hatch, Quinn hears the loud engines and tires of the Desti cars as they reposition. He contorts in the tipped seat to see Danny. "Do we get out?" Quinn asks. Danny looks intact, but his shoulder belt has him pinned at a tilt. Fresh scratches and scrapes cover his forearms from his bailout in the parking lot. "If we do, they pick us off as pedestrians. If we stay here, we're sitting ducks." Before they can decide, 2 of the Desti cars ram the same side again in a double T-bone. This time, with the Grand Cherokee partially lifted off the ground, the Desti front bumpers get the leverage they seek. They push relentlessly. Quinn clings grimly to the overhead handle as the Jeep tips more, then careens completely onto the passenger side. He's seated in a leather bucket seat, yet gravity pulls sideways, and his neck and core muscles immediately shout, "What the fuck?" His window cracks from the weight, then shatters. Only an inch separates his right forearm from naked asphalt. Cooper's head hits Quinn's left thigh. The Desti car that was under their tire disappears from Quinn's view as it maneuvers. He can't see any of the cars now because they push in concert against the bottom of the Jeep. But he can hear their engines revving from a whisper to a strange cyborg roar. The inertia of 9,000 pounds of Jeep resists at first. But then he sees the asphalt crawling by, inches from his face, as the Jeep slowly scrapes sideways. His neck muscles ache from holding his head off the ground. Then he grasps the goal of the attack cars, and whole-body chills of horror shake him. He shouts, "They're shoving us off the bridge!"
Thank you for listening to Metal Lies, Book 2 in the Shadowfast Skyhouse Thrillogy. Continue the story for free on my YouTube channel, where I post episodes every Tuesday until the Thrillogy is complete. Don't want to wait? Grab the entire Thrillogy, Metal Spies, Metal Lies, and Metal Rise, as ebooks and paperbacks on Amazon, Apple Books, Barnes & Noble, and most other online retailers. There's much more to the world of Shadowfast. Go behind the scenes by joining my newsletter list. To sign up, send your email address to shadowfast@colechase.media. Chase your adventure.